Hey guys, and welcome to my commentary for Jurassic Park 3. So let's just get straight to it because this is the one you've all been waiting for. I know it. So make sure you've got your Jurassic Park 3 Blu-rays in the players, paused right at the beginning, and then when I say 3, 2, 1, go, we all unpause and we should be synced up perfectly, ready to watch the film. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. There we go, Jurassic Park 3 has now started. And obviously, this is the, possibly, dare I say it, might be the most talked about one of the entire franchise after the first film, mainly because of its the controversy that surrounds it. Obviously, we see the ripple effect over the logos here of Universal and Amblin. And that's obviously a homage to the impact tremors from the first and second movie. Jurassic Park. Everything's all right then. Whoa! The claws. And now we see Isla Sorna, 207 miles west of Costa Rica. Restricted. Now, as a kid, I never liked the ripple over the logos. It felt too corny. And it was my first inkling, even back then, that something was different with this movie. However, I don't want to sit here and be the person bashing this film, so I'm going to say all the things I actually like about this movie when we're watching it. So, to begin with, it's nice that Isla Sorna is restricted. I don't like the way they handled it with the text, but the fact that it says restricted, says a lot considering what happened in the previous movie. But this right here, what we're watching, these two guys who have, set up this little tourist attraction illegally, where they, drive this boat close to Isla Sorna and pay people to come with them. You can see it says dinosaur on the parachute there, and this is basically a miniature version of Jurassic Park in a way. It's like this guy here might as well be, John Hammond in a sense, that he's, trying to make money off these fantastic animals by recapturing the awe of seeing the dinosaurs for the first time. So in a way, this opening, I'm not going to lie, I actually do like it quite a lot. In a very short amount of time, you're told quite a bit about, what has happened since the world knows that dinosaurs exist. Because we've got to remember, at the start of The Lost World, no one believed Malcolm and no one thought the dinosaurs were real. Then by the end of the film, the T-Rex is attacking San Diego, and then everyone knows. And after John Hammond's speech on the news, obviously this kind of thing would happen. So, this is the perfect transition. Yes, it is a shame that we don't get to see what attacked these two guys in the boat. But then, the fact that we don't see what's in the mist, is quite interesting because of what Jurassic World presents now. We actually are in a very special position here where someone could technically go back and rewrite what was inside that mist in a way. And obviously I've got my own personal ideas, but the idea that Masrani and InGen were working together at this time, where this movie's set in 2001, helps this movie in a way. At the time, obviously, this was full of grievances, but actually, as time's gone on, it's being retconned in a good way. I'll get more onto that later on in this video. Right, I'm just gonna have a sip of tea as Erik and can't even remember his uncle's name, Ben, land on Isla Sorna. And here we have our first look at Alan Grant. And again, he's having difficulty communicating with children. Now, this I can't avoid. Alan Grant in this movie goes through the exact same character arc he does in the first film, and that's uh, my main issue with Jurassic Park 3. But we see Ellie Sattler has 2 kids and a new husband. The husband is played by, I can't remember the character's name now. It's early in the morning. It's like, what's it, 8 o'clock in the morning right now. But Taylor Nichols is the actor who plays Mark Degler. Could I be wrong about that? But he's a very nice guy, Taylor Nichols. Really cool dude, and has appeared in many movies. Most recently, to my knowledge, it was Godzilla 2014. He had a small cameo in that film, and in one of the most important plot scenes that revolve around a big turning point in the plot. Now, obviously, Ellie and Grant right here start talking about, how raptors communicate, and this is kind of an explanation for the ridiculous dream sequence coming up. Why Grant dreams about a raptor talking. It makes sense, but it's just executed horrendously. I've always felt, even as a kid, that the dialogue in this scene just seemed a bit too scripted. If you understand, it didn't feel natural enough between these two. If I was to, go back and remake Jurassic Park 3, I would have had Ellie on. She would be at some botanist convention. She would have her and Grant would still be together, but she would be busy, and Grant would be the one, at the dig site, and they would have kids, and his arc would be completely different. Even when he says lines like "I'm the last of my breed," it's exactly the same as the first film when he says "We're out of a job." It's like, this is, a decade later almost, and he still hasn't learned. This scene in the school is fantastic because Grant presents that raptors, if humans were never to evolve, if the dinosaurs still had their reign on planet Earth, the raptors, the pack hunters, were the most likely and the most logical to have evolved to be more intelligent, and then eventually may have evolved to be the dominant species on this planet. This isn't a fictional theory. This is a theory that exists in science today. I've got a book under my bed that details like what a Troodon would look like if it was to evolve into like more of a humanoid type creature. But then that's guessing that an animal has to be humanoid shape excuse me, in order to be intelligent. But this is perfect when she says, "Has anyone got any questions?" As you can see, all these hands go up, and in a few seconds we're instantly told how the world has reacted to the incident in San Diego and Jurassic Park since it's come out that it's true. We don't need to see news reports or government officials restricting the island or anything like that. We're caught up in, instantly with moments like that. And then the 2 students who managed to ask the questions to Grant both ask questions about Jurassic Park, which, just goes against what he just said. So those 2 are like, budding journalists in a way. They'll make sure they get their story. And then Grant says here that, there is no way that he'll ever get onto the island, which is a lie, obviously. But it's interesting that he says that the dinosaurs are genetically engineered theme park monsters, which they are. Bruce A. Young as Nash. We interviewed him on the podcast, and he's a jolly fellow. And now we're introduced to the new gun of this film. And the annoying mobile theme tune. I'm sure every Jurassic Park fan under the sun had that as their ringtone at some point in their life. And this scene, I like the idea of being in a aircraft graveyard. It's a cool setting to be in, and it instantly shows us, what sort of a ragtag bunch of, quote unquote mercenaries these guys are, because they're out in the middle of these. I guess it's like a salt plain or a sand dunes, or in Montana, it might have just said. Oh no, now we're going to Montana. But yeah, it just shows how sort of quickly pulled together their team are. That they, the team the Kirbys have hired. They're not some professional group. Now we're introduced to Billy Brendan, a budding, naive paleontologist. You have to excuse my throat. Yes. Still adjusting to the changes of seasons, shall we say? Now we can see Grant turns up with his classic fedora, and talks about, and you can hear in the dialogue here that they're just talking about how, their weeks on this dig site has been cut because Billy's forked out the cash to buy a 3D printer, which in 2001 no one really, aside from seeing it in films like this, no one really, it wasn't in the, it wasn't a household name, 3D printing. But now, since about 2010, 2012, it's now commonplace. And it's another technology that's in this movie that was sort of foreshadowed. I mean, this is ridiculous. The playing of the vocal chamber is a little bit too tongue in cheek, but I like the fact that they had the 3D printer in the movie because, what would have made more sense is if Billy didn't play it in the tent. Then he made the vocal resonating chamber. Grant looked at it in sort of curiosity. And then later on, when the Raptors are about to attack them, Grant just takes a leap of faith and blows into it. Not necessarily tries to call for help or do anything extravagant. Maybe he just blows into it and it makes such a weird, horrendous noise that the Raptors get spooked. But yeah, I like I said, I don't want to keep dwelling on, what I would change. But this film does bring it out of you, what you would do. But don't get me wrong, I do love this movie. It does have its place. It did have a difficult production. That's the thing we've got to give it, credit for, is it had a difficult production. They went through so many rewrites that, it was a difficult sort of task. How do you make the third film? And at this time, they obviously didn't have the budget or the effects to make a film on the scale of what the new film is, Jurassic World. And that idea of, the Jurassic World's idea of an open park and the hybrid dinosaur, they've been around, ever since the first film. But to have it done well and done right was, not on the cards at the time that Jurassic Park 3 was greenlit. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, the Kirbys, They are annoying. And when you've got two fantastic actors like William H. Macy and Tierna Loney, I think I'm pronouncing that right. Uh, these two actors are really good, but they were wasted. It would have been so much better to see them play the serious divorce couple a lot more so than the comic relief. William H. Macy's performance in Fargo, that sort of performance would have could have come to the surface a lot more in this movie. Instead, he just comes off as a little bit of a Ned Flanders lookalike. And here we go. So Dr. Grant gets lulled into going to the island with the exact same method that Hammond used in the first film. And we've got to think of it like this. Malcolm went to Isla Sorna in the second film, so he went back to an island full of dinosaurs to save his girlfriend because it was morally right. And his plan was to get her and get out. Obviously, it doesn't go to plan, but he does it by choice because he wants to go there to rescue his girlfriend. And when he gets there, obviously, we hear Malcolm moan quite a bit about how scared he is of the island. Whereas in this film, Grant just is lulled into going to the island again. And obviously, I just talked over Billy talking about his lucky pack. So I don't know why there's two lucky packs in the Jurassic Park franchise, but for some reason that got written into this film. And I don't think, because in the second film it gets used. Malcolm uses the lucky pack to save Sarah falling out of the window of the trailer, and the raptor jumps on Sarah's back, tries to maul her, but is actually mauling her lucky pack, so it saves her. Whereas in this film, he mentions he's got a lucky, quote-unquote, lucky pack, but it never gets used. There's Cooper lying, saying, we met the Kirbys through our church. And then this is the most controversial scene in the entire Jurassic Park franchise. So Grant wakes up, no one's on the plane. He turns and sees a raptor sitting in the chair holding on to the seat, saying Alan. And it has quills, and it's the male raptors that are in this new movie. It's a species of raptor he has not seen before, so it doesn't make any sense. Plus, the first two movies didn't have dream sequences, so it's jarring when you have a different method of storytelling suddenly start to take shape. Obviously, this plane coming into the island is, a reference to the very first film. It's not the worst, this whole homage. It's not amazing. You can see the music's blaring out by Don Davis. And here's our first shot of dinosaurs. We've got some Parasaurolophus and Triceratops. And then I actually like this shot, despite the effects not holding up too much. The shot, looks it's a nice shot, and it shows you just how much the dinosaurs have been breeding. You can see all the Brachiosaurus there. But then obviously they're saying, can you see anything? And Grant seems to think that they're talking about the dinosaurs, but they're obviously looking for Erik from the air. And this is when Grant realizes something's not quite right. The music by Don Davis, I actually liked the soundtrack to this film quite a bit. It's not better than the first two, but it's definitely you know, Jurassic worthy. And I like that he wasn't afraid to bring in a new theme tune for the Kirby family, should I say? Um, and the Spinosaurus. And Don Davis was also famous for doing the Matrix sequels, or at least the Matrix Reloaded. I know. And if you listen to the Matrix Reloaded soundtrack, you can actually hear some, you know, um, melodies and stuff that appear in this movie because composers like to do that all the time. John Williams, Michael Giacchino, James Horner, James Newton Howard, Mark Messina, all of them do it. They have their own themes and melodies that they like to rejiggle and reuse in other films. Amanda Kirby here being ridiculously stupid, along with Paul Kirby, and then Alan Grant uttering the ridiculous line, "Sounds bigger." Now, if I said "sounds bigger" at the exact same time that Sam Neill said it, then you're perfectly synced up, just to keep us on toes. It's nice to hear the gunshots and the roar in the background. And again, like the Cooper, Nash, and Udensky, they're a cobbled together like group. They're not uh, you know, professionals. So no, it's no wonder this trip just goes hideously wrong. I love this shot that's about to come up where the Spinosaurus grabs Cooper. Yeah. Then the Spinosaurus gets clipped by a plane, and that's what brings it down. Now I have to say that the animatronics in this movie were, some of the most technologically advanced animatronics that have ever been in a movie. Um, it's just a shame how they were presented in this film because there's a lot of shots where they're not, you know, entirely amazing. Especially, and I love a lot of B movies, so you know I can't diss it too much in a way, but this was 2001, a big Hollywood, blockbuster, and there was two films before it that handled it even better. I love that shot though of the Spinosaurus just looking through the window. It's very creepy. Now I remember the first time I ever saw a screenshot or anything that resembled Jurassic Park 3 coming out when I was a kid, and it was a production still of all the characters in the back of this plane looking out with the jaws of the Spinosaurus just coming into the left of the image. And I remember seeing that for the first time and going, how the hell are they going to escape that situation? Um, that's a great death. But yeah, I remember being very excited. I think it was in Empire magazine, back in 2000. I saw that and realised Jurassic Park 3 was on its way. And I think the next thing I saw of it was I was on holiday with my family in Spain, and I opened a newspaper, and there was a picture of Grant surrounded by all the raptors just before Erik comes and rescues him. So obviously, the Spinosaurus is attacking the plane right now, which is something that Jurassic films do. They have a giant theropod attack a vehicle because it was so popular in the first film. But I remember being a kid watching this for the first time in cinemas and thinking, we're already at that scene. The first two movies, it took an hour to get to the moment where the characters are trapped on the island, and you can feel it in this movie that they just wanted to get things done quickly. Let's get these characters on the island because all people care about is seeing people running away from dinosaurs. And that's not necessarily true. But the film does paint a broader picture during this adventure, and short adventure, should I say, because this film's only 1 hour 30 minutes long compared to the other two movies, which were 2 hours long. This will be over before we know it. Great shot of the Spinosaurus coming out of the woodland there. I do have some more fan questions. After this little fight we're about to see between two giants, I'll answer the first one. I've got 3 to answer, so. And thanks for sending those in, guys. It's always nice when people send stuff in. It's nice to know you're being heard in a way. Okay, and here's the T-Rex. Now again, I remember being in the cinema and seeing that for the first time. I was like, holy crap, we're like 20 minutes into the movie, and actually it says 27 minutes into the movie. We've already seen the T-Rex. And now the T-Rex and Spinosaurus fight it out. And yeah, I'm with the party that believes that this fight should have ended with, well, we shouldn't have seen the ending of this fight. And then when we see the Spinosaurus later, we would have assumed that the T-Rex bit the dust. And then during the lake scene where the Spinosaurus is attacking the boat, they should have had the T-Rex come back, wade into the lake, and just start decimating the Spinosaurus. That cut there meant to be that you're meant to think as an audience that the Spinosaurus punched Paul Kirby and Mrs. Kirby is telling it to stop, but it doesn't come across very well. In this little scene here, they mention Isla Nublar. Because Grant says, why me? And they said that we needed someone who'd been to the islands before. This is what they're now talking about. And it's nice that, Udesky says, so there are 2 islands with dinosaurs on, which was true at this time in 2001. If you know the backstory to the 4th movie, at this time, construction was about to begin on Jurassic World on Isla Nublar. Okay, I'm now going to read a fan question. I'm just going to have a sniff first. Okay, so I'm going to answer James Hawkins. He always sends a question in, so thank you, James. You're a good fan. So, based on your T-Rex approach theory with the impact tremors, that's something I talked about in the first commentary. What would be your Spino one? to why it doesn't make impact tremors. I think that's because the impact tremors are a behavioural thing the T-Rex does. You know, my theory is that it will stamp its feet in a certain way to create impact tremors to warn, animals of its approach. So, or whether it can make really deep guttural noises that vibrate the ground through its feet. Elephants do that. Elephants are known to create impact tremors to communicate to each other and warn animals or other elephants in their territory. So the Spinosaurus might just not do it because it doesn't need to. Its behavior is different. You gotta be wondering, like, what is Grant thinking at this time? He must be just thinking, how am I in this mess again? It's one of the reasons why I'm happy that none of the main cast of the old films are the leads in the new one, because Jurassic Park has got to have that sort of realistic approach, and I could buy it with Ian Malcolm, because it was done so well. But Grant in this film, I wouldn't mind Grant being the lead. It's just how you got to get them to the island for a good reason, and having the reason the exact same one as the first film, isn't a winning number. We just missed the line a few minutes ago of Grant saying that the Spinosaurus wasn't on InGen's list. And he says, it makes me wonder what else they're up to. And again, obviously at this time, InGen was working with Masrani. InGen was being redeveloped by Masrani, should I say, to help, redesign, reinvent, and resurrect the Jurassic Park project for entertainment and science purposes. Shots like this look really good. The jungle, because I think this is filmed on set in Hawaii. Oh, not on set, but in Hawaii. That's why it looks so good. But then when it cuts to the stage 12 jungle on the Universal lot, you can tell. Not that that's too much of a problem, because I can tell when it goes to a jungle set, inside set in the first film and the second film. However, the jungle's very green in this movie, and the fact that it's meant to be set on the same island as The Lost World is a bit jarring, because The Lost World is so dark and the jungle feels so much more overgrown in The Lost World than it does here, despite the amount of vines, the amount of greenery and plant life that you can see has grown over everything. The wildness, that's the way I'm going to put it, the wildness of the jungle in Jurassic Park 3 has a sense that it's more staged than it should be. Like, this looks fine because obviously, as you can tell, it's filmed on location, but I'll get to a point and I'll mention it if I remember. Here's them using, batteries for a video camera, when video camera batteries are very different. I like little moments like this, like when they're looking at the camera. It's nice because you can see a little bit more of the world that is in Jurassic Park 3. Now imagine if, like, we didn't necessarily see the opening of the movie as it is. Imagine if the whole opening of the movie was like this videotape. How much more impact that would have, because it would also sort of homage the Mr. DNA sequence in the first film, by having a section of the movie that doesn't feel like the rest, in a way. Because people tend to overlook that, a good section of Jurassic Park is a cartoon. In this film, the opening, prologue could be sort of found footage sort of style. And I would have bought that, in a way. And there's the remnants of Ben. I have no idea what ate him up in the tree. I've always thought Compsognathus, but who knows? Like, he was just... They all gathered... Because he's got no legs, you see. I guess that he was, like, dangling, and they started climbing up his body and nibbling at him while he was hanging there. And once they had their fill, they left. But then we do see that, they walk, or run, should I say, or stumble, a little way from that area, and we enter a very darker part, or a darker part of the jungle, and Mr. and Mrs. Kirby incidentally stumble onto the raptor nests. I don't want to keep complaining about the film. And even though I just said, like, about the whole found footage at the beginning, I don't want to keep dwelling on what I would have done, but it's very difficult. But I say that because I'm about to say another one. The raptors have left their nests completely exposed to predators. So it makes no sense why there are no raptors guarding these eggs. Yeah, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of, a lot of future generations of raptors here. But where are the parents? And then Billy, packing in the parachute, sees the eggs. And he's got an idea. See, all this jungle looks fine. Because it's shot on location. Anything shot on location is good. Billy looking all nervous, obviously. Up to no good. See, despite, everything wrong with this movie, the things they did right, they did right. Like Billy as a character, I liked Billy as a character, how he's, trying to save the dig site by stealing eggs. It's a nice, almost nod to Nedry. And I would love to have seen Billy Brendan come back in a future film, wiser and, almost like the new Alan Grant. After what he learnt, from this movie. And here we see the, I think it's the embryotic, I hope that's a word, embryotic institute or installation, where they grow the dinosaurs, essentially. Or where they grew the dinosaurs, until the Hurricane Carissa, wiped out everything on Site B. And it's a fan speculation that the storm that we see in the very first Jurassic Park, that builds and builds and then goes over the park while the T-Rexes escapes and Nedry escapes, later builds to become the hurricane that destroys Site B. So it is a fan theory that I'm inclined to agree with, that storm seen in the first film, as I just said, is the storm that's uh, caused this building to become abandoned, which would be nice and kind of poetic in a way. Now we enter these very creepy labs, the laboratory, and these things we see here with the eggs in them look very similar to the ones that we see in the Hammond Creation Lab at Jurassic World. We see some dinosaur embryos. And the raptor with its head against the glass. I feel like they pushed it a little bit too far. Like, because that raptor would have to be intelligent enough to know that if it stood still behind that tank, it would make itself look like it's in that tank. Because it's obviously not hunting, because if it was hunting, why is its head at such a stupid angle? If you understand my meaning, like, that raptor must know that it looks like it's in the tank, which that's ridiculous. And completely stupid. But this is cool. Being chased through the cages, the animal cages. The raptors in this movie, they're a different breed, as it were, to the raptors we've seen in the first two movies. They're a different species. Now, whether they're more pure raptor, like more real raptors, as they were meant to be in a way, because they've got the quills and they're more intelligent, who knows? But they're definitely a different version of clone to what we've seen in the other two movies. Grant, you shouldn't be surprised that it's calling for help, because they did that in the first movie. They run into the jungle, and this shot of the raptor running down the steps is awesome. You can see the little pebbles moving, and as it calls the others. And there's our first shot of the female. And I love this sequence where they say into the herd, and you see all the Corinthiosaurus and Parasaurolophus. They start stampeding, and then we get a first glimpse of the raptors running at full speed, but we haven't ever really seen that properly in a Jurassic movie. There we go. Now, if they'd have had one more character in this movie, they could have had someone die in that stampede. It would have been quite horrendous. And yeah, as you can see here, like the set is amazing, like so ridiculously detailed and so big, but it's too green in a way. There's too much greenery. There's not enough complexity to its. I don't know. It just seems very staged. It's very hard to put my finger on. This looks amazing. This shot here, the set. This is the thing with this movie. You can look at it in one way and see it looking absolutely incredible, and then other times it just seems quite jarring. In one way, it's like all the plant life is random and scattered all over the place, whereas I would have had it where one set of plant life would dominate over another, so you'd have different sort of almost areas in a way, with other things sort of dotted in between. great shot of the raptors jumping up towards the camera, and the CGI just looks amazing. Now these raptors, they see, it's okay. We've got a male and a female here, and then they're calling another male and another female. So we've got two females in the pack of these raptors. But which one is the dominant, the alpha, as a way in a way? Because later on we see one female taking her eggs back. So whether the eggs that Billy has taken just belongs to one section of this pack, but we never see the two females together again. See, there she is. Nice shot of animatronics and CGI working alongside one another. It actually looks really good. And then we have the gas grenades being used, as out of the brush comes Erik Kirby, almost looking like Tarzan. Not Tarzan. So almost like Doug McClure in The People That Time Forgot. Someone who'd been living in a prehistoric wasteland for so long. You know, it's nothing new to have a character like that. Someone lost in this hellish wasteland. But Erik, you know, being a smart kid, found this water truck, found as many supplies as he could. He's wearing an InGen jacket there, which is a nice little touch that he's obviously found that jacket and is wearing it. Trevor Morgan, who plays Erik Kirby, is a very, very funny guy. We interviewed him on the podcast and he was very humble. He sees this cobbled together home that he's made for himself. And he instantly recognizes Alan Grant. It is kind of annoying that the Raptors just stood around Grant. They didn't attack him. I'm not going to lie. It is kind of annoying. Rather than have Grant, you know, find Erik or stumble across this home and find him just hiding in here, not moving, through pure fear. He actually meets Erik, where, you know, just being out in the jungle. You can see them. You can tell that they're in desperate times because they're eating from unmarked cans, rusty cans with spoons. And then, yeah. See, I've heard a lot of people complain about this joke, but I actually kind of like it. It fits in with Jurassic Park in a way. You know, this is T-Rex P, and he's like, how did you get it? You don't want to know. It's perfect. Like, yeah, we don't know how he got it. He could have snuck up on a T-Rex and stood underneath it, or he could have dipped that vial in a puddle. But it's funny. And then Erik realizes he's been on the island for 8 weeks. And it's nice that he says, is that all it's been? Because to him it must be worse. And now Grant has just asked, have you read Malcolm's book? And he's like, what did you think? And Eric's saying it's too preachy, everything's chaos. And Grant laughs, and it's like, well, Grant, look at the situation you're in. This isn't, you know, a smoothly controlled situation. This is a very chaotic situation you're in. So Malcolm was right. You even said that yourself in the first film. And why is he, you know, concerned about what people think about Malcolm's book? And here we see the Compsognathus looking amazing. The CGI here just looks incredible. My favourite little guys just eating flies, which is a nice nod to the Lost World Jurassic Park video game. But yeah, why was Grant obsessed with what people think about Malcolm's book? Grant is a very unlikable guy in this film. I'm just going to say it. He's not the same character. And it's a shame because he's meant to be our hero. We had a little shot of Ankylosaurus just then, and obviously the Ankylosaurus are going to make a big impact in the new movie. As far as we can tell from the trailers, should I say. Now we have a bit of character development between the Kirbys. Character development that no one really cares about because we don't really know or care for these characters in a way. Would have been, kind of interesting if, you replace the Kirbys with Grant and Ellie, and, Erik could be their kid in a way. If you rewrote it, you could have had it that they're trying to rekindle their love for each other by saving the child, something that they both agree they should do as parents. It would have given Alan Grant, a better character arc than what he has in this film at the moment. I have to say, this is possibly my favourite set in the entire film. This overturned truck in this lake that he's living in. I think this set that he's built this little walkway, or there's another Jeep in the water there. It's a very cool set. And they've been hiding up in the trees overnight from the Raptors, which is a nice little touch because it's almost like they had to, de-evolve back to being, apes. Well, we are apes, but I mean like chimpanzees in a way. I'm not saying the human race were ever chimpanzees. They're a completely different species. Just that I think you know what I'm trying to get at is the fact that they had to climb up the trees to get out of the way of danger. A very primal move. Now, Billy's drinking from the water there, and you can see that Paul Kirby was just taking a piss into the same water. It's not very sanitary. Now he says, all the big dinosaurs are in the centre of the island, and Billy says, sure. And Grant said that, their big dinosaurs are in the centre of the island, so I'm guessing he talked to Malcolm at some point, and Malcolm must have said that, InGen had most of the carnivores in the centre of the island, but, Now, again, back to Alan Grant's story arc, this film gets him alone with a kid on an island full of dinosaurs, which is very much like him being lost in the woods with Lex and Tim. And, Grant had that fossilized raptor claw that was almost like a thorn in his side in the tree, and he threw it away, and it was sort of a metaphor of him a metaphor for him moving on, and deciding that the world is moving faster than he is, and he should grow up and have children and focus on other things. But in this film, like, he's handed a fresh raptor claw. It's like his character has literally just started again right from the beginning. It's just From a storytelling standpoint, that's annoying. This is nice that they can both hear the theme tune of the mobile phone. Um, technology is calling them. Technology is calling them together. And the music here by Don Davis is fantastic. The reuniting of the family. Sort of the family score. And it's a nice visual storytelling there of them all coming together on the opposite sides of this fence. It's especially with the family, because I don't know, it's symbolism, lots of symbolism, you know. Shows the two parents in a cage. They're both separated from each other. And now we have the Peter Pan moment, like the clock in the crocodile's stomach that scares Hook. Whenever you hear the clock, the crocodile is near. In this movie, whenever you hear the mobile phone, the Spinosaurus is near. And it shows the Spinosaurus can be a very stealthy predator. But where that phone, how they could hear that phone so clearly, I don't know. And the Spinosaurus reevaluates the situation and decides to take a run up and burst out of this fenced area. And then cannot get through this metal doorway here. Now, I've heard everyone under the sun complain about this. We see the Spinosaurus smash the fence, but then we see it, struggle to smash down that door, and then it gives up. I've not necessarily had too much of a problem with that because of the angle of the door. You've got to think how tall the Spinosaurus is and the weird angle it must be getting at to try and, smash this door in, or even the walls of this complex. Compared to, this fence. But I can see what, people are saying. Like, it should just smash through the wall and get them. It would have made more of, they could have done that and had these guys run down those steps and then have this conversation between Grant and Billy, in the Avery, which we're about to enter. They could have done it that way. But there are worse things in this movie, namely Grant's character arc and the talking raptor. The Raptors characters in general and the short runtime that make me overlook things like the Spinosaurus not being able to knock down the door. Oh, and obviously something I haven't really talked about at all, and it's been ages now, the killing of the T-Rex. I think everyone knows what I would say about that, so I don't think I need to really talk about that too much, but let's just leave it at the T-Rex should have lived. Actually, no way, I did talk about it, didn't I? I said about the T-Rex coming back and killing the Spinosaurus in the lake. Forgetting my own points now. Okay, so in the build-up to the Avery sequence, I'm going to answer another fan question. This one is from Boris Kopp. He asks, hello Boris, by the way. He asks, here's a question for you. Would you classify Jurassic Park 3 as a sequel or merely a spin-off? Because for me, it's just an adventure movie that happens to take place on Isla Sorna in some way and doesn't develop the story around InGen. This is why I'm also excited for Jurassic World. Henry Wu is back and we might get a full circle with the first film. Now, yeah, your question is very interesting. I said that on YouTube under the video. And I think it's interesting for this question that you said it doesn't develop the story around InGen. I think in retrospect now with the new movie, this film does have a lot to say about InGen because one, Grant mentions that they've been breeding dinosaurs that weren't on a list that he supposedly saw. Two, we see the embryo labs. Even though we knew they existed, it's nice to see like another section of the environment that InGen used. We see the Avery, and as we'll see in a few minutes, there's human skulls in here. So what happened here is something that InGen covered up, and no one really knew about. What else? Just trying to think of more other things to do with InGen. But yeah, I feel like this film could have developed InGen a lot more. But for its 90-minute runtime, it doesn't forget it. There are subtle developments in this movie. But yes, so for me, do I see Jurassic Park 3 as a sequel or merely just a spin-off? I see it as a sequel. I would give my right arm to be able to get all the footage and edit this film with a proper studio to release, a definitive cut that sort of rights the wrongs in a way. And not just my own personal opinions on what's right and wrong, but things like timing, cutting out the dream sequence, just things that most people agree shouldn't be in this movie. One thing that would stay and not be touched is the Avery sequence, what we're watching right now, because this is widely regarded as one of the greatest scenes in the Jurassic Park franchise. And rightly so. The music's great with the drums going dum 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 dum, and the Grant slowly realizing that they're inside a giant aviary or quote unquote bird cage, and the mist that you can't see anything around you. It's creepy hearing the bridge, creak and groan as this menacing flying reptile just walks out of the mist. It's very scary. And this is obviously, a harken back to the first novel with the Avery sequence. Now, what a lot of people don't realise is like shots like this are completely CGI. The whole surroundings, the Erik, the Pteranodon, all CGI. And here's the human skull I was talking about. There you go. Whose skull was that? We don't know. But yeah, so anyone who complains about, a lot of CGI being in the new movie, have to remember that the previous films use CGI quite a lot, and especially in this sequence, there are many shots where it's completely CGI. Like Billy jumping off here is CGI, and the surroundings, and it works because they know how to handle the effects in a Jurassic Park movie, in a way. Obviously got these baby Pteranodons mixed with Stan Winston's animatronics as they start to peck the life from Erik Kirby. It's interesting that the baby Pteranodons in this Avery, they siren. Yeah, it's interesting that the babies, they aren't fed. They must be getting quite old and ready to fly because they're not being fed directly via the adults in a way. The adults just drop the food to them, and they have to start to hunt it in a way, learn to hunt it. Now the Pteranodons here are very aggressive, and they have teeth, which is something Pteranodons didn't have. But again, these are genetic mutations, genetically engineered theme park monsters, as it were. And then the Pteranodon is, taken out by the cage. And Billy's finding himself, you know, trapped on the rock face. And see, this is where his lucky pack could could come into play, but it doesn't really. Unless is it no? Am I being stupid in thinking that his lucky pack is meant to be the one that he's got the raptor eggs in? No, that's just his camera bag. I don't know. Someone comment and let me know if I'm forgetting something there. Now this is great. This shot of Billy getting up and the Pteranodon trying to pick him up, but he's just too heavy for it. And then he basically just tells him to get out of there. And this very creepy shot of the animatronic Pteranodon watching it unfold and then just turning around. I do believe that is an animatronic, but as someone pointed out, it looks like CGI, and the more I watch it, I start to lose focus on actually what it is. Is it CGI? Is it animatronic? It doesn't matter. It's a Pteranodon. That's all we need to know. And now Amanda Kirby being stupid. Now, obviously, as some people know, in the backstory of Jurassic World, the character of Vic Hoskins, played by Vincent D'Onofrio, was hired by Masrani to oversee the security measures at Jurassic Park, at Jurassic World, because his team successfully took down the Pteranodons that are seen flying off at the end of this film. And that's all thanks to Amanda Kirby, because she leaves that gate open. So Amanda Kirby gets Vic Hoskins the job, and his team the job in the new movie. So, we'll have to see what the effects of that are. All I have to say is that's chaos theory. Oh dear. That's a nice little character moment there where Paul Kirby's like just sort of ranting to himself, and then he looks at Amanda and she's just looking at him with this look of like, you know, calm down, Paul. Now, this is my favourite line from Alan Grant in this film when he says that there are two types of children. Well, I think he says boys, but, children. He says they're astronauts and there are astronomers, and the astronomer gets to study everything from a safe distance, but then they never get to go into space, which is another take on, what Hammond wanted to do with the park by having something real that they can see and touch, something that wasn't an illusion, or that is that kind of a discussion. And but I think it's really nice that he says that, and it's true in a way. And then just coincidentally, we get this nice orange glow of sunlight on the characters. And we cut to this ridiculously over the top, like beautiful, picturesque shot of all the herbivores just hanging out. You've got the Ankylosaurus drinking from the river there. You've got Parasaurolophus, Stegosaurus, and Brachiosaurus. And the Brachiosaurus in this movie, I'm not a fan of their coloration or their eyes, the way they've made the male Brachiosauruses look. They look terrifying, and yeah, I mean, like, look how hideous this one's face is. The amber-coloured eyes. They just look a little bit too different to what we saw in the first film. The big cow, as Grant puts it in the first film. Now, this boat that they're using is nice. I like this sort of vehicle that they've introduced in this film. It's nice because it has a cage on the front of it, and it makes you think, that they were transporting animals up and down this river. So what was that cage for? It's just a little ferry for certain dinosaurs. Now, whether they're Pteranodons because they were near the Avery, who knows? Now we have the characters fishing through shit to find the phone that they hear. And it's just a gross scene, but stupid. And then we meet another dinosaur, the Ceratosaurus, who walks over, sniffs them, looks at the camera, and then walks away. And I'm not going to lie, that's a bit of a waste of a really cool looking animal. And that Ceratosaurus, the CGI model, is actually the model of the T-Rex that fought the Spinosaurus. So they used the T-Rex model and reshaped it, gave it a horn, recolored it, gave it more spikes. So that's why if you look at it carefully, it kind of resembles the T-Rex. But yeah, it would have been nice to have like two Ceratosaurus chase them through the embryo labs. That would have been cool. There's another idea for you. And now we meet Charlie as Grant painfully tries to call Ellie in this time of need. And Charlie, being the wide-eyed youngster, gets distracted by Barney the dinosaur. That's a lovely shot, of the spine coming out of the water. Now this is an impressive sequence because they filmed this all on a lake, or a man-made lake, and they actually had the Spinosaurus animatronic working in this lake and covered in water. It's just a shame that this really tense sequence, or should be really tense sequence, where the humans are ironically trapped in the very cage that caged the dinosaurs, as a giant dinosaur starts attacking them. It's a shame that this sequence is intercut with a kid watching Barney. And I know it's played for laughs, but I don't know. I like the idea, but it drains all the tension out of the scene. And then Ellie starts calling. And you have to get that phone, but it keeps sliding up and down. Now, this Spinosaurus, obviously, a lot of people have said, why does it chase the characters across the island? It's got no reason to, and that's partly the reason why it's looked at more of a monster than it is an animal. And I agree. It doesn't make any sense that this Spinosaurus is after him, unless it's almost like you could look at it like a wasp. If you destroy a wasp's nest, wasps tend to chase you for some time. And this Spinosaurus was hit by a plane, but there are no injuries on it. One of my favourite shots of the film is that Spinosaurus roaring just before it plunges its hand into the cage. But yeah, as soon as they landed on the island, the Spinosaurus was after them. So, what's its beef? Because dare I say it, they're bigger fish to fry on this island than these 5 measly humans. But who knows? Maybe there is some backstory to the Spinosaurus that we've yet to learn. Now this is I like this sequence where Paul Kirby is being the hero. He's standing on top of the crane, trying to get the Spinosaurus' attention. But the Spinosaurus doesn't think to bite that crane and really shake it to get him off or anything like that. And then Grant using a flare against a giant theropod again. This time, instead of a flare you hold, it's a gun, a flare gun. Which again, actually, would have been perfect if he fired the flare and it bounced, onto the Spinosaurus, and then out of the brush came the T-Rex, and the flare, caught the attention of the T-Rex even more. And then at this point, we see the Spinosaurus on fire walking away. And everyone believes Paul is dead. And then you've got this very, this Kodak moment where they are hugging in front of the flames. And I like this little speech here that Paul Kirby gives about missing fishing, because obviously he's saying he misses fishing because he's concentrating on dangling from that crane almost like bait on a line for the Spinosaurus. It's a nice little character moment for Paul Kirby and this family that have now reunited. Now, obviously, something we don't see is that Ellie has called to her new husband for help because he works in international treaty laws, which something we don't dive into too much. But he was the one who could make the calls and get the army or the navy to go and rescue these people. And now aside from the flute, no, the dream sequence on the plane, I really have to be frank and say I don't like this sequence where the raptors are circling around the humans to get their eggs back. I mean, it pushes that CGI is really good on that raptor. It pushes the level of intelligence for these animals to a ridiculous level in a way. It's I like what they're doing. The fact that the raptors are so intelligent that they don't necessarily just kill you to get what they want in a way, whether it be food or eggs that you've stolen. But I don't know. It's not handled that well. It's nice that the female raptor goes to the female human and thinks that, Amanda Kirby is the one who stole the eggs. And it's nice that Amanda Kirby gets to sort of save the day in a way by saying, give me the eggs, and she gives them back. You've got these two female characters, one reptilian, one human, eyeing each other down. And then Grant just plays the flute and it confuses the raptors, and then they run away, essentially. So I like the idea behind the characters of the raptors being so intelligent that they don't want to kill you necessarily, as I said. And all they want are their children back. That's how far they've progressed as a species, is all they want are to save their young. But it makes these raptors completely unthreatening. It just, I personally, as you probably will guess, I would have handled it differently. Obviously, some people say that the helicopter noise was also something that scared off the raptors, but I've never really thought that, because why would raptors be scared of a helicopter noise? And then you've got the Navy turning up. All these people, all this money spent to save these 5 people. And then it's nice to see that that Billy survives. And there's a little Indiana Jones moment where he says, "I rescued your hat," which is something that I think the audience at this point, and I know I did, I'd completely forgotten that he'd got the hat at the start of the movie. Even from memory right now, I can't remember the point where he lost it. No, I'm trying to remember, but I can't think when did he lose his hat? And obviously they're flying back to the mainland, so they're now heading east, because Isla Sorna is west of the mainland in a way. So when they talk about the Pteranodons, they look out of the window and you see this shot here. So the helicopters are now heading east and the Pteranodons are now heading north, technically. And Grant says they're probably looking for new nesting grounds. And that's why in the backstory of Jurassic World on the Masrani website, they ended up landing in Canada. They were heading north, and a lot of documentaries about birds nowadays talk about how much they can fly great distances, in search of nesting grounds and stuff. So you got to think an animal of the size of these pteranodons could fly pretty far if they needed to. So these 3, whether they, abandoned their young in search of new nesting grounds, who knows? But Vic Hoskins and his team await them in Canada. And that was Jurassic Park 3, directed by Joe Johnston. I think my favourite Joe Johnston film still is Jumanji. Nothing can top that. But anyway, I've got one more fan question to answer. It was from Michael Butler. He actually emailed this in. He said, at the end of Jurassic Park 3, the Pteranodons have escaped and presumably later make it to the mainland, as hinted through the Masrani site, as I just said. However, at the end of The Lost World, there are many Pteranodons shown flying around free on Sauna for years, which have remained isolated and unknown to the public. What is your theory for how they stayed undiscovered and why this changed after Jurassic Park 3? Well, at this time, all I can theorize is that the Pteranodons we see at the end of The Lost World are a different species because they look completely different and are situated on a different section of the island, and possibly don't stray too far from the island. As we can see from the end of The Lost World, the Pteranodons don't have any teeth, so they eat fish. As we can see, the Pteranodons in Jurassic Park 3 have teeth and they attack the humans, so they eat larger prey. So my theory would be that the Pteranodons seen at the end of The Lost World are a different species and they stick close to the coasts of Isla Sorna. There you go. That answers that question. So there we go. That was Jurassic Park 3. I hope you enjoyed this commentary. I didn't want to be too critical of this film, but I know I was, hopefully gave some positives, because I do believe this film has its place. It had its, bit of a difficult production that cost it some things, but as I've gotten older, I've sort of learnt to appreciate bits of this movie a lot more than I used to. I mean, when I first saw it, I didn't like it in cinemas. I remember, mainly because they killed the T-Rex. Then a few years later, I tended to like it quite a bit, so I'd watch it when it came out on VHS. I remember watching it quite a bit, and then a little bit after that, I remember not liking it at all. Then I cut it from my own personal canon, but now I've just sort of I accept it for what it is, and it is a sequel, and it is part of the canon. It's just it just needs a good edit. It just needs a good re-edit, and I'll never say never, because who knows? If I ever get the money, I will sit down and re-edit this movie and convince Universal to let me release it. And I'll do it with Joe Johnston. There you go. I'll sit down with Joe Johnston. That'll be something, wouldn't it? Anyway, yeah. So I hope you enjoyed this commentary. Thanks for listening. Happy Jurassic June, and 9 days till Jurassic World. So when Jurassic World is released on Blu-ray later in the year, I'll sit down and I'll do a commentary for Jurassic World, and that should be quite an interesting one. So look out for that. Yeah. Have a good day, everyone.